Wish it really felt like a Friday.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Morning Update Show. I'm your co-host, Trey Holiday, and it is a great Friday lineup. You guys know we put in that work to bring you that great news all the time, whether it's good or bad, both sides of the aisle. I got to throw it over to my guy. He does it every day. Y'all know him, Big O. What up, Big O? Happy Friday.
Yay, holiday. What's happening?
Hey, only you get to call me that.
Yeah, you're my girl, man. Well, first of all, it's Friday. It's usually Feel Good Friday, but it's smoky out here. So before we jump into everything, let's start off again with the air advisory. That's clip number 1 there. Today, unhealthy. In case you needed a visual cue for that. Do we have that, Daryl? Oh, okay. I know you got all them donuts back there. This is what happens on Friday.
Oh yeah, we're missing our donuts on Fridays.
Donuts. So unhealthy today at 163. What we are seeing though is a reduction in a lot of the red that used to be in that map. You know, it was a deeper color. So I mean, air quality is improving. I'm saying that from an unscientific route, just in the fact that the numbers on this index that they use have been declining, and so now we're at 163, and man.
What are the healthy levels technically? Is it like in the 120s? Zero, huh? Zero particulates in the air.
Yeah, something like that. I think like 100, below 100 is healthy. And before we get going with lots of news today, big shout out to everybody who's tuning in from. Of course, here in Seattle, our neighborhood, the Central District, the South End of Seattle. Love and appreciate you. But also, we have a growing, there goes, we're supposed to have the phones off on the set. We have a growing viewership that's really encompassing all throughout Puget Sound. So I want to say hi to everybody watching in Everett and watching out in Tacoma, and then, of course, across our state, and even down in the Rose City now.
Yeah, so, it's great. Appreciate that, y'all.
All right, so the big news, OPA. Man, OPA, they released the findings for their first 5 cases. And so the way this works is there was a few journalists that were given the information a few hours beforehand, and an opportunity to talk to the director. And so, I was one of those people. which was cool.
Awesome.
We're new media out here, and so I mean, it's called embargo, and so we've done that with a few. It's mostly lawyers before they release a lawsuit the next day. They give you information. But with this here, I was able to go and talk to Director Meyerberg, and he'd been given 30-minute interviews, and we talked to him for an hour and 11 minutes. And I told him that, I want to talk to him about these cases, but really want to ask a lot of questions on behalf of our community, right? And so it's like, this covers a lot. We're gonna air the whole interview sometime later on today, the whole 1 hour and 11 minutes. I know Chats with Trey is at 2 o'clock, so we're trying to find a slot right now. Hopefully by the end of this show, we'll be able to update everybody, but either way, we'll put it on the internet. But we're gonna air the whole interview, 1 hour and 11 minutes, and then we're gonna do a live show after that and talk about it. People will be able to kind of chime in, general public will give their thoughts and everything else, so it'll be pretty interactive. But I'm out of order here, Daryl, but let's start. Before we go into these cases, and this was actually the very first question that I'm sorry, let me give you a heads up, Daryl. It's going to be number 4. The very first question that I had for Director Meyerberg is like, man, does your office have any credibility? Go into the protest stuff. I mean, it's a big question I want to know, 100%. How or why should the community, our community, take OPA seriously? And when one hand, you get the SPAG president saying, he's not worried about OPA. We have a council member Sawant, who's saying that OPA is not credible, at all. Then when you get the mayor, as well as the former police chief, Chief Best, I mean, even when presented with video evidence of different things, and I know things need to be adjudicated properly, it's just like, go talk to OPA. I mean, it seems to me like there's a very marginalized department that's over here with a very big responsibility. So it's like, why should the community even take OPA seriously and credible?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there's a lot of questions in there. I think from my perspective, maybe they shouldn't. Right, in one way, right? I think we've spent at least the last 2 or 3 years since I've been in OPA. I've been here since July of 2017, trying to build our community footprint. Right, we hired community engagement specialists. We've been working with folks at community passageways, at other organizations to try to build that footprint and get to know people. Right, but the fact is, I think we're in a world right now where people don't trust systems. It doesn't matter if it's OPA, OIG, CPC. People don't trust systems. We have a specific mandate, right? And our mandate is to investigate any violation of policy. And again, that sounds super technical, right? But it means that anytime an officer engages in excessive force, anytime an officer is unprofessional, it's our job to do so. So the reality is that we're staffed up. We have 11 investigators. We have civilian staff. We have policy people. We have all these different pieces of the puzzle. We investigate cases. We investigate about 500 cases a year. We issue sustained findings. We sustain about 20% of our cases a year. But I think, unfortunately, the way things go is what hits the press are the cases that we don't sustain, or what hits the press are the people calling us out or saying we don't do this or don't do that.
All right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds like a lot of what he has to do in his role is to also try to give the public at least a little glimpse of how they do things. But he is right that people don't trust systems. And I think him saying that and addressing that is true. At the same time, you were actually proposing that, hey, there's this footage out here, and people wonder, like, how credible are you guys even utilizing that?
That might bring us to our next clip here, which will be number 7 that you want to cue up, Daryl. Because what I told him is I was like, man, the ecosystem that he is in, the city of Seattle, that's their ecosystem. We in our ecosystem over here. We in the Central District. Right. The ecosystem they're in, man, they do his office no favors, because no one is willing to be like, man, OPA is this, it's great, it's whatever. And when something goes down, when something gets funky, right? So like during the protests, clearly we've had a magnifying glass on that. They'll hold a press conference, the mayor will hold a press conference, and then Chief Best at the time will hold a press conference, and then they'll have everything broken down bit by bit. See, well, the protesters did this, this, and that. And you know what I'm saying? And it's there and it's clear and it's itemized and it's like officers witnessed or video surveillance witnessed, right? And so they'll bring it out to the public and it's like, yo, we saw this group of people. I think it's unfair to say protesters, but however, these bad actors in the protest did X, Y, and Z, and they're very specific. But then when you ask those same people, like, yo, what's up with this video footage here? What's up with, like, you know, I mean, like, for example, a blast ball, I think it's supposed to be 30 feet. You know what I'm saying? It's supposed to be like 30 feet to be able to throw a blast ball or something. And it's very clear that, man, everything needs to be investigated, just like the people who they're saying the protesters or the bad actors who did whatever, they get a day in court, is innocent until found guilty. When it comes to anything that's caught on tape, over on the police side, they won't say anything. Right. They won't even be like, man, that don't even look good, but hey, we're going to investigate. You know what they say? If you have an issue, go to OPA. This is clip number 7 right here. And actually, I brought this up that it's like the ecosystem down there in Seattle does OPA no favors. Voices, I see it, that actually puts any faith or credibility into your office. Like I said, City Hall basically says, oh, by the way, just file a complaint. There's nothing that, at least that I've seen in the last 4 months, that's held your office up as, hey, this is an example of how things can work. This is the way things should move. It's always a side comment. When you get these press conferences down there at City Hall, it's like, well, hey, did you guys see this action or that action with the police? Well, hey, if you have a problem with the police, especially because in a lot of the press conferences, things are specifically brought up against protesters. Protesters did this. They tried to break this window. They did that. They'll break down the address, the time. When the media comes back and says, well, hey, look at this video right here. Look, there's a flashbang going to somebody's head. What do you have to say about that? City Hall says nothing but talk to OPA. And so, I mean, there's nobody in this city that's building any credibility into it. No one's doing you any favors.
Yeah, and that's not new, Amari. I mean, I think that's kind of been the way it's been for I mean, I think for multiple OPA directors, I'm not the first. And I think the reality is OPA was created in the year 2000, right? Like, it's been around for a long time. And then 2017, when they passed the accountability ordinance that tried to revamp the whole system, there were a lot of people that were, you know, trumpeting OPA and the work we can do. The system that was created, it was supposed to be OPA doing internal affairs and looking at these investigations of misconduct with a civilian-led department. You had the OIG that was doing the systemic look. You had the CPC that was doing the community outreach. Those models together, one of them is not going to fix anything, right? But those three together were supposed to move us forward and to create a system that could be trusted, even if you disagree with the outcomes. I think that there are people out there that do support us. Like, I think, you know, I've gotten support from certain council members that understand the need to have these systems and the fact that, frankly, Omari, there aren't that many other good systems in the country, right? The systems that are totally internal affairs, and that's not an excuse, that's a reality, it's a fact, right? So, totally internal affairs, there's no transparency. It's all sworn. It's all done by them, right? So our office is a hybrid model. We publish our information. We try to report on information. We try to be honest. We try to be forthcoming. You know, have we hit every single person in the community? No, we haven't, right? But we have developed relationships, and I think we're doing our best. And the fact is that, you know, I think people sometimes will trumpet OPA when it serves them politically, and they won't when it doesn't, and that's okay too. But you know, I think there is support from some places, particularly from the other accountability entities, because they understand the value that we bring to the system.
Yeah, like I said, it's, I mean, you know, you'll find watching the full interview tonight, like I said, hour and 11 minutes, is that, you know, he's real straightforward in the interview where he's like, look, man, I can't change this whole system here. My office, it can't change it. It's, you know, it's not even designed for one person or one office to be able to do what needs to be done, which was actually, like, you know, good to, I mean, he came out with it. Wasn't like, oh yeah, we're doing this and that and everything else. I mean, you know, he outlined what, you know, the progress their office is making, but he said that the way that things are the system that he works within isn't designed for him or his office to be able to make, you know, I think the big changes that people are looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he highlighted a hybrid model too, which that's kind of the way that it works, right? Is that there's this shared kind of authority or responsibility with that hybrid model. So that might be a cause of it. But I think too that's one of the things that contributes to a bit of the confusion that people experience on the outside of that system, not understanding the ways that each level is responsible for what and how that hybrid really comes together. I think the public understanding that would be helpful too.
Right. And we're going to get to some of the cases, and believe me, I have the case. I had these case files. It's only 5 though, but one of them was really long. It was the pepper spray one, so we'll get to that. But I asked Director Meyerberg. I asked him. One is South Seattle Emerald. They wrote an article about Renee Ricchetti, who is the writer for the Seattle Gay News, who that day, July 25th, remember Bobby? We were out there. She was right across the street from us, where a flashbang was thrown over by her, and she now has permanent hearing loss in one of her ears. I saw Renee the other day. I was like, wow, I had no idea. And Renee is still out there on the job. So I asked, because in the South Seattle Emerald, they asked what was going on and the way that the process is moving on Renee's case of violation of the consent decree. Now, this answer is very long, and it's not convoluted. It has a lot of layers to it. But this clip right here is when he continues the conversation talking about Renee Ricchetti, Seattle Gay News writer, and what's the way that force is reviewed, and whether Renee's case should be reviewed in Seattle Police Department's FIT team or over at OPA. So let me button it up there with Renee Ricchetti, Seattle Gay News. So, I mean, what's the position? You guys have a case now?
We have had a case, right? The issue is, and this is what it's a little bit frustrating, because I think there's just confusion about kind of what these different bodies do. What they're saying, right? What Ms. Ranecki is saying through her attorney, right? Is or Radicki, I'm sorry, is what they're saying is that they want FIT to do an investigation, and I don't understand why, right? Because FIT does contemporaneous investigations, right? Like, this is now after the fact. Even when it was reported, it was already done and dusted. There is no scene for FIT to go to, right? The force is reviewed in the normal course of business, and that force is going to go to the Force Review Board. So what they're seeking is going to happen. I just think there's a lot of misunderstanding, and this is not their fault. I'm not blaming them. I think it's mostly systems' fault, right? But I think there's a lot of misunderstanding as to the review that's going to occur. And if what they want is a review to determine whether the force is in or outside of policy, we're the only entity that can do it. So even if it goes to the Force Review Board, because OPA has a pending investigation, they're not even allowed to opine on the case. They can evaluate it, they cannot opine. OPA is the only entity that can do that.
Yeah. So, it's an ongoing thing. I mean, he actually gave a pretty detailed explanation, and in the whole interview tonight, people will see that. But that was one of the things I want to follow up on. Another question that I did ask, we didn't clip it out because it wasn't that much of an answer to it. But Black Lives Matter, Seattle King County, man, they brought the artillery yesterday against OPA. They said another one of these letters out, man, and basically said that OPA is just corrupt. They're asking the Inspector General to investigate OPA, saying that OPA, the office of the OPA, is illegally giving information to police, and the OPA people are accessing information about protesters, and then the OPA is colluding with the mayor. It was pretty deep. I mean, and I'm not on Seattle King County, Black Lives Matter Seattle King County's mailing list. Neither is, I guess, Bobby Stills. Neither was the director, Meyerberg. So actually walking to the interview, I was on the Emerald's page, and so I didn't really get to read the letter or anything beforehand. But I did bring it up to him, and he basically was like, man, there's nothing to say. but some real serious allegations being levied against the OPA by Black Lives Matter, Seattle King County.
Well, man, they're writing these letters out there. I mean, they got a lot going on, a lot coming out. I think, again, it's another opportunity to hear from them directly. You know, we offered that position right here on the show. I think there's been a lot of community members that have been trying to figure out how they're doing things, or even how they can support what they're doing if they like the moves that they're making, right? So, you know, getting back to the public is going to be key in that regard.
All right, yeah, once again, Black Lives Matter, Seattle King County. Hey man, the floor is yours.
We here.
Even the OPA director gave us an interview, so we're here for you. Yeah. So moving along here, another thing that I brought up was August 16th, the protest in Soto. The police declared it a riot, and on the 17th, I believe, they came out with their video, and they took video from different live streamers and a few other people, and the SPD put out their video, right? And they've done it a few times before, but then the next day, Mike Solon took the SPD's video that they made with the live streamer stuff, and then made a SPOG video. And actually, he put some music underneath it too. I see Poppy's doing his DJ thing over there. And so basically, you have this protest that the police declared a riot. The next day, SPD puts out, their video. The day after that, SPOG puts out their video. And then the next day, Speculation releases a video that shows a real violent arrest occurring out there in Soto. And when we hit up the police, I hit the police up immediately. I was like, hey, what's up? Can you guys release this, quickly, get it out to the public? And the police said no. And I said, well, it's kind of odd you guys say no. I mean, you just, you guys put out your video. SPOG, who's not connected to the SPD, but still they use SPD's footage in their video. Both of them put out videos. Where's the video of the arrest? And, we went through this email chain, and they were like, well, OPA is investigating this now, so we can't release the video. So at the time, this was back in August, I sent an email to Director Meyerberg. I'm like, what's up with this tape? SPD says you can't release it. Meyerberg was like, SPD can release any tape that they want to. It's up to them if they want to release it or not. And so anyway, the back and forth. But I brought up this body cam tape issue, and especially this video that Speculation released. This is one of the questions that I asked Director Meyerberg. OPA having cases. We've a lot of times in different things, we've reached out to Seattle Police Department. I think one of them was the video, the Speculation released after the first Soto protest, where they're on the tape. It shows bicycle officers going into a parking garage, and then I guess you'd say a suspect there running. Gets slammed up against a wall there. And, when we reached out to the Seattle Police Department, they said that, with something sitting with OPA, it's not their policy. They what they can't do, basically.
And you reached out to me,
and I reached out to you, and you said that there's nothing that stops SPD from releasing any tape that they want to, even if it's in your office.
Yeah, so here's and this is always, I think OPA is used as a sword and a shield, and this is what always happens, right? The reality is that what's confidential for OPA's investigation, what's confidential is within our case file, right? The interviews we're conducting, the information we're amassing. While the case is pending, that is confidential. What is not confidential, these videos are out there. You can request them in public disclosure tomorrow and they would be given to you, right? So from my perspective, I think it's a good idea to make it public. Make the video public. Show what happened, show what occurred. And I'm not saying make it public because I think sometimes what we see is that video is made public when it's maybe advantageous, and when it's not made public, right? What I would just say is put it out there.
The issue that you face there is that the day before, SPOG took and I don't want to get too far afield here, but maybe this whole process is learning a lesson in the sense that SPD was taking footage from live streamers and making their greatest hits video. Then what happened is Mike Solon and SPOG took SPD's video and made it basically a SPOG commercial. And that happened I think it was a Tuesday and a Wednesday or something like that in that week. But then when people are like, oh, okay, release the body cams, everybody goes quiet. And so, I mean, if SPD within 24 hours hadn't released a whole video that they well produced, and then the next day Spog hadn't created an ad about it, you might not have had the public saying, well, where's this body cam footage? Yeah, it's a video age. I had talked to some people downtown, and they were talking about actually trying to develop a system where all body cam footage just goes into some server and it's just accessible to to the public. I mean, they're still a ways away from something like that. But, I mean, I think these kind of questions are important, because especially, like, the thing is, I don't think that if SPD hadn't come out with a video the next day, you know what I'm saying, and then Spog the day after that, there probably wouldn't have been a big cry about the immediate release of the body cam footage.
Right.
From that incident there in Soto.
Yeah, I also think, too, that when we talk about, getting back to some relationship building that trust, that is one simple thing, right? Body cam, when they introduced body cams at all, it was like, finally now the public will get to see it from the officer's perspective, and all of this, well, they were reaching for a gun, or they were doing this, or I was in fear of my life. We would be able to see that as the public. And so I think that this database, that's the way to go. I really was under the impression that with this body cam footage, it would be released and available to the public, because that's the police building that relationship
instantly. And what Meyerberg said is, it was like, man, whether it supports the narrative or not, just put it out.
Yes.
And so, we see that a lot of times the footage will come out very fast, especially around the protest here, if it supports the SPD narrative or what they want to put out. But something that's counter to the narrative, then it instantly, OPA has it, we can't release it, and everything else. And I think what Meyerberg says, even further on in the interview, is he's like, look, man, people need to stop picking and choosing on the video.
Yeah.
Put it all out.
Put it all out.
And so, that's kind of where he was sitting on that.
I think it also gets away from that gatekeeper mentality we keep on talking about. That's that gatekeeper way, kind of the old normal. Let's move into something new. I like that.
Yeah, no kidding. So another one here that we talked about was, I guess a big one here before we go into these cases was, we asked, this is number 8, Daryl, sorry. See you looking at me like, man, bro, what number? We asked, like, look, does OPA have any teeth? And I had to bring up some historical from yesterday. When my mom was sitting here talking about working on police issues 30 years ago, and Chief Fitzsimmons at the time was like, yeah, you ladies need to go find some husbands or something, stay out of police business and things like that. So I told him it's never been this culture that, that people feel like people have been accountable. And I believe there's been 29 shootings or something like that, that all, the findings are all, I want to use the proper term, so it's sensitive when you talk about police stuff, but basically the point of this is that guys really want to know, does OPA have any teeth? Because it doesn't really seem like a lot. Back to my first question, is anybody taking OPA seriously? And we'll get to these findings right here, and we'll see what people say, and we'll see what the community says and everything else. But I answered and kind of asked and answered this kind of question here, coming from our community.
Yeah.
I mean, and unless I'm wrong, I've never felt that like the oversight people have ever had any teeth. I've never felt that way. Anyways, this is actually Kevin Schofield posed a question to Director Meyerberg. Does OPA have any teeth? Is there's limited accountability here, and the public perception is also, like Kevin alluded to here, is that there is this it's optics. You said half of your staff is PR. These guys, it's an optics issue as well.
Yeah.
You hear what I'm saying?
Yeah. So do you guys really? I mean, do you believe OPA has teeth? Do you believe that the work that you do and the findings that you do make a difference?
So yeah, I do believe that. I do believe we have teeth. I do believe that we can make a difference. I mean, I think the problem is that, I think what sometimes the expectation of the differences we can make are outsized, right? Like, you know, ultimately, you know, I've made 100 policy recommendations since I've been at OPA. Has that improved policies? Yeah, it has. If you want, I can give you every one of those policy recommendations. You know, can I transform a department, one accountability arm? Can I transform the police department? Absolutely not. It's not possible, right? So I think, you know, these are hard questions to answer because, you know, you're saying no, you ask him, and I respect it, right? But you're saying, you know, the community doesn't trust OPA. Who in the community you're talking about, right? Because I talk to people too, right, that do, and not everyone does, and that's okay too. And your community is going to be different than the people that I talk to and the people that, that oversee the department, right?
Well, I mean, let me be honest with you. Even when I say community, I'm from the Central District of Seattle, from 29th and Jackson, James A. Garfield High School, and I'll be honest with you, my whole life here in Seattle, there has never been a time where people were like, oh, man, you know, there's a great amount of trust between oversight and accountability.
Right.
You know, we had a show here this morning, the morning show we talked about 30 years ago. It was Chief Fitzsimmons who was telling the women in our community who were standing up against police brutality that they need to just go find husbands. That was the tone. That was the tone of the Seattle Police Department 3 decades ago. So when I talk about community, I'm not talking about Kevin's community or anybody else. I'm talking about the Central District legacy black people in Seattle, and it's never been a time where you felt like, oh, okay, these guys got our back for accountability.
Snaps.
He asked, I told him.
Yeah, that's just the truth, and what you actually explored right there with him is the growing sentiment of so many of us who came from the Central District, are black people, have had to deal with discrimination. There has never really been a sense that, you know what, if something happens wrong to me with this police force, that there's some oversight authority that's going to get them for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's best to just be able to tell people the truth and what it is. I would be doing a total disservice to go down there, be talking to the director or OPA, and then be like, oh, man, well, you know, I never hear anything in our community. Our community loves this. And I'm just like, man, you know what I'm saying? I'd want somebody to keep it real with me if I was in one of those positions or something, you know?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's just all it is. You know, he wants to know what community? My community.
Right. You said, I'm not talking about nobody else.
I'm not talking about nobody else's community.
I think we have a bunch of cases. We have a bunch of people hitting the streets that really agree with that sentiment. Oh, I think there's so many people now that are using their voices because there's not enough trust or enough belief in that.
And
then
he
again,
acknowledges that.
I have to say, too, that it's also pressed even more when you hear Mike Solon say he doesn't care about these complaints. So, you know, we're getting it from multiple sides.
I mean, I really encourage people to watch the full episode. You know, we're not a pay-per-view network, so it's free. So I'm not trying to drum it up like that. But watch the full interview. We should have the time scheduled here in a little bit. But sometime either late afternoon or early evening, 1 hour and 11 minutes, the full interview is out there, and people will be able to really, you know, go into. It's a lot of answers that he dives deep into. Some of them was kind of like, man, but there's quite a few answers, and you know, I mean, he came across on some stuff as a realist. You know, now whether we like his reality or not, or whether the public likes it or not, or the police or the city, you know, in that sense, it came across pretty straightforward. So.
Well, I will say, though, too, that he offered to share those 100 policies
we need
with
those.
you. We definitely need those.
Yeah,
we need to know how he has moved the needle forward, if he's able to say with you there, like, yes, I do believe that I'm doing what I can. Yeah, it will be great for the public to see that, too.
Right. And even the mediation, you know, I asked them questions about mediation. I asked them a lot of questions. We only, like I said, an hour and 11 minutes. Only clipped out like 5 things, and so yeah, it's a lot in there. So there was 5 cases that came out, and let's see, one was, this one. This one had what's called rapid adjudication, like basically, and it's very short, so we'll just run over it. Basically, an officer was apparently overheard repeating a phrase from the movie Top Gun. And so Yeah, I'm not going to read what he said here. But somebody complained to OPA. It's like, yo, I heard this guy saying this. He admitted, the officer admitted to saying it, and then it went through an internal process in SPD. He said that he was repeating a phrase from a movie, and so that one came out. But anyways, another one that came out, not sustained. The allegation was use of force when authorized, and it says complainant and her friend alleged that an unknown SPD officer pushed down an elderly man, and that constituted excessive force. So they talk about the investigation here, and basically they couldn't find. They're saying that they couldn't find reason to sustain it, so not sustained. Also, you know, one thing that I bring up in this interview is, in a lot of these complaints, they're saying no one's talking to them. So they're like the T-Mobile case, the knee on the neck. They're like, oh well, you know what? They wouldn't talk to us. And then they're saying that the pepper spray wouldn't talk to you. Read through some of these. It's like nobody's talking to OPA. That's what they're saying. I'm like, well, man, how come nobody's talking to OPA? And, you know, he gave a wide variety of things. Like some people don't trust the system. Somebody might have a warrant. They don't want to go and talk. Somebody might feel like, you know, intimidated. Somebody might not want to talk to an officer. But they have some civilians now. He explained that. There's 2 civilians. But when you read through these case files, you find that there's not a lot of citizen witnesses that are involved in this process, and you know, I mean, so they make a determination based off of the information they receive, and that can be verified and everything else.
Well, I wonder what their reach is, or how is it that people are refusing to talk to them, or is it that they can't find the people to talk to them? I wonder
what the director said is it's a laundry list. Sometimes there's no phone number or email that's there. Sometimes he said people have a lawyer. The lawyer doesn't want them to talk to him. Sometimes the information is bad. Sometimes people change their mind. Sometimes, but the end result is when you read some of these cases, you're finding that there's not a lot of participation from the general public.
That strikes me as odd, because these are the ones where people do want to speak up. And you know, recently I was able to interview a group of free protesters with Sade A. Smith, the lawyer that we actually had here on the show. And you know, they really had this sentiment of, we want to make sure our story gets told, because these are the reasons why we're out here protesting, right? Is to actually ensure that what happened to us doesn't continue to happen to future generations or to other people. So it's very interesting to hear the opposite coming out of OPA, where, you know, they're not able to really get folks to speak to them about these cases.
Somebody is just commenting here that, like, you know, they feel that OPA is an incredible place because there's police that work in there, and in their relationship with it. So they're like, man, if they're talking to OPA, is there information moving around? I mean, this is just real life comments.
Yeah, and those are real concerns with people. I mean, we have seen where certain protesters have felt like they've been targeted directly. We've seen this with the everyday marchers and folks who have been doing their car barricades. We've seen this. And so the ideas are not radical ideas. They're actually lived experiences of some folks that do share their stories. And so this is interesting, because that is definitely a real sentiment out there.
Right. There's another one here, not sustained. There was an allegation of use of force, and then bias-free policing. And again, not sustained, unfounded. Complainant alleged they were subjected to excessive force when they were pushed back by officers. Complainant 1 further alleged that the officer violated policy by not recording body-worn video. Lastly, complainant 2 asserted that he was treated aggressively because of his sexual orientation. And yeah, you know, they've gone through here. All of these are up there on the OPA website, by the way. I'll see if we can link this from our blog to these summaries here. Again, not sustained, not sustained. So now we have one kind of sustained and then one just not sustained. I think that the first one we'll do is actually the sustained one. Now this is T-Mobile. We keep saying T-Mobile. But people remember that there was the video of the officer with his knee on a suspect's neck out in front of the T-Mobile store, right? And what was alleged was the allegations against this officer were standards and duties. Employees shall strive to be professional. They were saying that this officer was not professional. That's an allegation. Use of force, neck hold, use of force when authorized. And then a third allegation was use of force, a neck hold, or a carotid restraint. And basically what happened here is they sustained, number one, where they said that this officer did not act professionally. They sustained number two, saying that the knee should never, it's called a prone arrest, this kind of arrest, that the knee should never have been on the neck. But they did not sustain number three because they're saying that although the knee was on the neck, they don't feel that the officer was trying to maliciously cut off blood circulation or something like that. Let me see, what number is that, Daryl? That's number two. You can go ahead with number two.
Officer's knee.
Okay. So part of our investigation is, so in that case, generally what we've done is we've taken the video that community members have recorded, and then we've used that as a starting point to see, okay, can we identify where people are situated, who's involved in what, and then what we'll do is then we'll isolate the body-worn video. We'll say, okay, we've identified these 3 officers were involved, we're going to watch their body-worn video, and then try to say, okay, what happened, and why were things done in the way they were done. This is a unique case in which the best video that we had ended up being the Twitter video that was recorded, I think, was Matt McKnight, which was a really good video. That showed, from our perspective, you see the officer involved is taking a subject into custody, and the person has run out of a T-Mobile that was being looted, grab them, they pull them down, and they're prone to handcuffing, which means that the person is lying on the ground, and they're putting weight on the body to hold them down so they can handcuff them. And the officer's knee, from our review of the video, is rested basically across the neck here, and then it's kind of readjusted again, resting on the neck, and then you can hear people in the crowd saying, "Get your knee off his neck," and then you see another officer pull the knee over. When we looked at it, from my perspective, that's not how SPD trains. You're not trained to put your knee on the neck. Frankly, you're trained to put the knee on the back of the shoulders and by the base of the neck. And even if it was 13 seconds, and frankly, even if it was inadvertent, the fact was that it did violate policy and it did violate training. So we recommended that the use of force allegation be sustained, which means that we said it violated policy. As part of that case, too, we had watched the body-worn video, and again, before and after, and we identified some statements that the officer had made that we viewed as unprofessional. And there was a sustained finding issued there, too, to say that just didn't meet the department standards for professionalism.
So that's that case right there. There was another employee had employees shall strive to be professional. Apparently, they're saying this officer right here. Actually, the professional one is this one. Actually, had the one that had sustained had a knee on the neck. He had some. He was talking. Yeah, he called somebody a bitch. Someone said, "F, I hate the cops," and then he responded, "Yeah, you're a bitch."
Wow.
And then some other stuff. Yeah. Anyways, so
again, we can read those on the OPA
yeah, no,
website.
they're there. Just go there and read them, man.
Get all the colorful language.
I've already done all my profanity for today on here, man. You know what I'm saying? So this is the one, and that was a very big case right there. That one went pretty viral. But this last case that we're going to talk about here, and then we're going to, it's Feel Good Friday, so we mix it up. The last case here is a case that went around the world. This was a young boy who got pepper sprayed down there in the protest. And actually, so hold on, we have a few different clips on this. This is number 13, Daryl. You see it down there? Oh, you don't have it on there, but it's number 13.
I just put the 3. Let me go down.
Oh, okay. Well, anyways, I can talk about this some more until you get it. So this was the one where you see a child being is reacting to the pepper spray, and then there's someone that's trying to pour milk in the child's eyes and everything else. This one incident right here garnered 12,000 complaints.
Wow.
So like people everywhere, you see it, you see it on TV or you see it on the internet, you go and complain. 12,000 complaints right here. So this right here is the witness view. This was somebody who was standing over there basically recording.
Okay. It's gonna be okay. It's okay. Give her some space.
Here.
Pieces of shit! Huh? All you are! Why not? You feel good? You shot that kid? You feel good? You shot that kid? You shot that kid? You feel good, homie? Yeah, you've been practicing.
Right, and so most people, I'm sure you've seen this video too.
Yeah.
Right, that literally went around the world, viral video. 12,000 complaints filed. Office of OPA yesterday, what they said is this case is not sustained. The allegations that were placed were use of force when authorized, and then also Olarism, Capucin. Yeah, basically there's two OC spray. So one is use of force when authorized, and the second is the use of the OC spray. And what OPA found that in both cases, those allegations are not sustained, and it was lawful and proper. We're going to go ahead and let Meyerberg explain his findings here. I think this is going to be clip number 3, Daryl. Yep.
For that case, when we evaluated the case, we started from the premise because the complaint was that the child was targeted with pepper spray by an SPD officer. So we started at that premise, and when we first reviewed the video, there was no video that showed the actual pepper spraying. The video that we had showed the aftermath, where you had the child who was affected by the pepper spray, and they were pouring milk in the child's face, and he was standing in the street screaming. So
that's the one that went viral.
That's the one that went viral. So
you got like 13,000.
About 13,000 complaints for that case. So most of those complaints identified a certain officer as using the pepper spray. So we started with that officer's body-worn video, and to watch that first to say, okay, what can we see? Again, because we didn't have any community members' video that actually captured the usage of the pepper spray. So when we looked at it, we were able to determine that that officer was about 15 feet away from the pepper spraying, so he wasn't involved. But we were able to isolate the rest of the people that were on the line facing the protesters, and we were able to see what they did and when they did it. So as part of the investigation, we went through all those videos, and we started to isolate the moment of the pepper spraying. So basically from when a disturbance starts happening at the protest line to the time that the pepper spray is dispersed, it's 25 seconds. And when the pepper spray is used, that's about 5 seconds. And what we saw was, and I'm happy to show you the video, what we saw was that there, at one point at the far right side of the line, they begin to arrest somebody. While they do that, they say move back, and they start to push the line back. A protester who's wearing a white shirt pushes through the line, and she pushes into an officer, grabs the officer's baton, and starts pushing back with the officer. At that time, simultaneously a supervisor, who was the individual that actually used the pepper spray, comes behind that officer and then directs a pepper spray burst at this protester. She turns around and moves back, and that's the 5 seconds. What isn't clear until you watch the totality of the video is that right behind her is the father, and right behind him to his right is the child. So looking at other video, what we're able to do is we're able to see that before this disturbance happens, he's about 10 or 15 feet away from it, towards the middle of the line. So the disturbance starts to occur, and he moves with the child towards the disturbance, and then the pepper spraying happens. So when we were looking at the video, you can't see from our perspective, or certainly from the officer that uses the pepper spray, you can't see the child. The child is behind and down. What you're looking at directly is the woman or the protester in white that's breaching the line. So the pepper spray application is to her. And what it appears to be is that when she's sprayed, she kind of turns like this, and there's a deflection that appears to affect the father and potentially the child. So that's what we saw. So the evidence is pretty clear that they did not know that the child was there, and certainly that was consistent with the video.
Well, man, I was really interested in the answer because, again, I think that the general public, you know, there's certain consensus that are drawn because, like you just said earlier, it's the video age, you know, and so when we see all of these kind of, you know, look like real modern day atrocities almost happening out there in the protests, and they're able to say, well, this is not sustained, this is not sustained, this is not sustained. Again, it only perpetuates the ideas out there that people have about the effectiveness of OPA and what are they doing when something looks as bad as everybody rushing to get that kid okay. You know?
Well, I mean, so there's a few things that are indisputable. What's indisputable is that a Seattle police officer discharged OC spray. What's also was not in dispute is that the child was impacted by or hit with the OC spray. And now what Meyerberg is saying, and there's a whole clip, this is a 5-minute montage of body cams, but I mean you can find it on the OPA website. We'll play it later in our evening when we play the whole interview. What he's saying is that, well, SPD didn't see the child there, and so they're saying they went to all the body cams of all the different officers that was there, and when the spray was being released, the officer who released the spray didn't see that the child was standing behind somebody or this and that. And so, you know, it brings up another argument. You know, one of the things actually that one of the lawsuits before was wanted to limit the use on pepper spray, and how accurate it is and everything else. So the director wrote here, "This is one of the hardest cases that I, as OPA director, have ever had to consider during my nearly 3 years in office. Certainly, there's never been a case that received as many complaints. On one hand, the child suffered a clear wrong when he was affected by the pepper spray utilized by the officer. On the other hand, the officer used appropriate force to prevent subject one," which was there's a woman who was there who was on the line, "from breaching the line and could not have known that subject one was going to duck and that the father was going to bring himself and the child directly behind her, putting them in immediate vicinity of the disturbance. This is said not to blame the father, as OPA does not believe that any parent would knowingly place their child in harm's way. These are simply incontrovertible facts."
Well, I mean, we hear what's written there, and we also were able to see his response when you were able to ask him. And in that response, it's a little bit skewed because I hear that in the writing. But what I heard him say, or what I heard was, it seemed as though the father moved himself and the son directly right when things were going a little bit south. And so it was almost as if, well, you know, this lady came up, was pushing the police, and the father saw some distraction happening and decided to move over there and just kind of see what was going on or something, is what it sounded like he was indicating. So again, I mean, this is why releasing that body cam footage so that people can understand how the police see it. It is actually, sometimes it'll be to their benefit. So just like we're saying, it's going to hit both sides.
There. So the body cam footage, it's 4 minutes long. You go to OPA's website. We'll play it later on tonight when we play the full interview. We'll make sure and edit in what they're talking about there. And yeah, I think that one thing that's happening for sure around the Seattle protest is that there's a lot of people who are really engaged in the system right now who were never engaged in it before. A lot of people didn't even know what an OPA was, how it works, or anything like that, how some of these functions work. It's a lot of people didn't even know when the next election is as far as city councils and things. They know now.
Right.
Oh, when you up for election again? You know? So people are being engaged in the system, but we're going to follow this up all throughout the day. You know, and when we air the full episode later on today, we're going to take a short break right now. When we come back, photojournalist Steve Hickey is in the building. You are watching the Morning Update Show.
Trey.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, CashApp, or PayPal at Converge Media.
All right, welcome back to the Morning Update Show. I'm your co-host, Omari Salisbury. On a smoky Friday. I'm looking at it, man, the smoke is thick. Joined this segment by photojournalist Steve Hickey. What's up, man?
How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good.
Welcome to the
Thanks
Morning
for having
Update
me.
Show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So I wanted to bring you on here because it's, you know, our photojournalists are on here a lot. Big Jake, Eric Calligraphy, been with us from day one, really in the Seattle protests. But you've been all over the place. You know, the Seattle protest, the Portland protest, and then while a lot of like for us, we shoot for Converge, but you actually shoot for a lot of national broadcasters, right? Like
That's right.
NBC and the morning show and things like that. Why don't you take a second here and introduce yourself to our audience and what you do and what you've been doing?
Sure. So my name's Steve. I work as Name Impactful Lens. I try to get out there, you know, in Seattle. I've also been down to Portland, and when things are getting pretty crazy, as well as when they're really laid back and a nicer feel, I try to get out as much footage as I can. So I think the differentiator for me is I use a full-size camera. So I'm using deep glass. I like to get in there more tighter shots, more intimate shots with what's going on, and then just try and find moments that capture what's happening at that time.
Tell me, how much pressure is it? And pressure, and then also, are you ever concerned when, especially shooting for a national broadcaster? Like for us, we never, outside of Pink Umbrella, like Pink Umbrella, I told everybody, take it. You know what I'm saying? I put out something on Twitter, like any broadcast, but I felt it was important for the world to really see what's going on. But beyond that, we've been real leery, and we've never given any of our footage to any national broadcaster. But then also, you know, we're in a different kind of lane in the sense of what we're doing. It's media, but a bit different. But one of our biggest concerns as well is we can never control what happens once it's gone.
Right.
And so is that ever a concern for you when especially covering these protests and working with national broadcasters? Like, man, what are they going to say?
For sure. So it's a big concern. I think the difference with what I do when I'm, you know, instead of doing a live stream where just everything goes out, and then if I go for an hour, you can pull out 2 minutes and kind of create whatever you want, I still have some control. So I may go out and shoot, and unlike a live, you know, I'm adjusting camera settings, I'm posting up, I'm doing all kinds of different things. So it wouldn't be enjoyable to even watch that just all the way through. But then I get to go back and try and summarize what I saw out there. And then the groups that I then give that footage to are groups that there is a bit of a working relationship. I know what they're going to do with it. I know that they're going to try and zoom back and tell the whole story. It's not just going to be, hey, on this whole day, let's just talk about looting or just
We saw that a lot during, remember the early days of, even when it was Chaz, before it was Chaz. I mean, it was so much sensationalized media that was out there, and people were calling. Like, I was getting calls from people saying, hey, we're getting reports of people looting houses looking for rations and this and that. Can you get footage? I was like, yeah, man, it's kind of not happening.
Right.
But I mean, so you get what I'm saying, especially early on, that Chaz Chop, the narratives around all kinds of stuff are being spun on full cycle.
I'd never seen that firsthand, anything like this, where I would go out, spend a day out, have what I put together, and then I would turn on the TV and hear what was being said was happening.
Right.
And it was, I mean, I was there, I was literally in there, and I didn't see this. I'm not saying it was always perfect from front to back, but what generally happened was very different than what they're saying is what Seattle's like.
You know what was interesting was that day that they said that the chop was over.
Right.
And I was actually right there, and the crazy thing is that there was a bunch of national crews that were there, and our office at the time was right there at the chop. So we let the camera guys come down from different crews, charge up, use the internet. And I remember telling them, I was like, yo, they had just decided to move from off of the field to basically occupy in front of the East Precinct, and another group said they were going to go downtown. And, you know, that tweet went out from some account saying, like, Chop's over. And all these guys were, like, reporting. And I'm standing there, and I'm telling them, they're like, Omari, we keep hearing Chop's over. I was like, bro, it's not over. Look, you see these guys in these tents? They're still here. And everybody was sitting there reporting the Chop was over. And I had to turn on my live stream and go to each tent and be like, hey, did you get the memo? Are you guys? But right behind me on the national news and international news, people were just going with a whole different story that wasn't real.
Yeah, I saw that a lot, and I think a lot of them came in with whatever the narrative was that they wanted. So they came in from a lot of them don't know a lot about the city when they get here. They don't even know who the politicians are, the key players. They know the mayor, they know her name, but as far as the city council members are involved, so when they come out here, here's the angle we want to look at. We want to show the city not following through, and that's really the depth that they're looking at. So now they're trying to find, you know, footage to back that. So is it them coming out and trying to skew it as much as they've already kind of got it in their minds? This is what's happening, and this is what I want to show. You know, I don't know if it's as connected in their mind that it's this plan. You know, this is what we want, this is what we get. But they come out there with an understanding from a national standpoint. The same thing everybody else is seeing. They're watching it too. It's not like they have a private line in, and so when they come out for a week, that's all they're going to get, and that's usually how it goes. Is as that area floats to the top. Portland had the same thing. Everybody flies out. There's plane tickets going all over the place. They come in, they try and capture, and then they're gone to the next biggest thing. We have no real understanding.
The guy from ABC Nightline told me, he said it's turn and burn.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly what it is.
He was like, yeah, man, turn and burn. So how important is, I remember me and Jake Grabrot and a few other photographers and photojournalists, we did this panel a few weeks ago, and some of the still photographers said that their biggest thing is captioning and metadata, and so they can make sure that they're getting it right, 100%, because the wrong caption on the right photo is is well there. When you're shooting these video packages for people like NBC and things like that, are you just, I mean, you're putting it together, are you just sending the video, or are you sending notes as well? Are you talking to people? Is it?
So typically I'm going to put together notes of what I saw to put some context to it, because depending on that organization, they may have other different types of shows, right? And so There's the nightly news, and then there's MSNBC where there's more commentary, and they may want to repackage and try and freshen up. So I like to run through, hey, here's what happened here, here's what we saw there, and give them something that they can work with, but also lay it out. And I really try to only work with networks that are going to try and tell the whole story. Not just, hey, here's something on fire, look at this chaos. Hey, look over here, look at the Wall of Mom story, look at what's going on over here in CHOP, look over here where they have a kitchen set up. Here's other things going on besides just people frustrated.
Right. No, I mean, that's important. I won't say any names, man, but like we got hounded for weeks by very polarizing TV shows and polarizing radio shows on either sides of this issue, who was already very clear what their narrative or agenda was. And man, they wanted me to come on air so bad. They wanted this and that. I was like, man, me appearing on your show isn't going to benefit our city. Right. Because at the end of the day, yeah, we're out here doing our media, but at the end of the day, us guys want a better Seattle. And so me going on some of these shows and some of these networks, man, that's just going to drive a further division in our city. It ain't helpful. I tell people all the time, Converge would be much bigger right now. For sure. We'd be way bigger if I took all the big interview requests and if I sold our footage, if I did it, but man, none of that stuff is going to get us a better Emerald City. So, you know, one thing that we did see out there, I know me and Bobby still saw a lot, is it sounds like somebody like you is fairly thoughtful around your content and everything else. We found there was quite a lot of people that weren't.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've seen a lot of that. I think when you want to go, so be clear, you know, I grew up around here. I love this city. I love I love everything about it, from the parts that people are unhappy about to what make it a beautiful place, everything in between. It's all part of the experience. So when I came out here, I wanted to be able to show the city in the best light as we go through a historic moment, but still capture it as a moment in time that's part of a much bigger story. And if all you want to do is come out here and say, hey, here's what's happening and look at this chaos and so on, you can make that narrative. That's not hard to do. And there's a bunch of people, I get hit up all the time asking for footage, willing to pay a lot of money for it, so that they can spin that around. I think, you know, it depends on who you are as a person before you even pick up the camera as to what you're going to try and shoot and what you're going to try and do with that. Because you could take the same 5-minute clip package, exact same clips, and spin it completely differently.
Man, 100%. And also, I will say that is one good thing about the live stream, is that long format. It's difficult for somebody to come in and say something wasn't what it was. Right. You know, I mean, like 100%. Somebody, a lot of times, the flashpoints, we were recording 40 minutes, an hour beforehand, 2 hours before a flashpoint, so people can see, they can see everything in there. You know, speaking of flashpoints, we said we weren't going to play any more of this stuff this week, but I thought it was important. Steve had sent over a few things, and a lot of his stuff was like on the ground, like whatever. I was like, man, it's Feel Good Friday, bro. So we're going to have to come back for that. But it was something real interesting. You were there on July 25th. That was the big day up there on the Hill, and I think it's important for our audience. I don't have this footage, but this is a footage, and I want to set the scene here. You let me know if I'm wrong. We were all standing, us media. We were all standing on what would have been the south side of the street there on Pine. All the media was there assembled, and this is what flies in to the middle of the media group. Go ahead and play number 9, Daryl.
He's hit too. Your media. He didn't come out. The media taking the worst than anybody on here.
Yes. You see it right there, you know. I mean, it's not made up when we talk about how the media was just, we were all standing right there, man. I mean, actually, you were in the moment. You tell us what happened.
Yeah, so I remember standing over there by you, and we kind of purposely got to that side to be able to be out of the fray, right? I mean, I think it's important if you're going to be there with a camera, you can be in the space, but the space is going to do what it wants to do. You're there to document it. So we're kind of off the side, which I usually like being over there so you can kind of have law enforcement one side, protesters on the other, and see that interaction. And then there had been just previous to that an explosion that had happened up at East Precinct, which they reported later that there was a hole in the building. And so as that communication got out to law enforcement, they started amping up quickly. And then this I guess concussion-style grenade goes over. Those are meant to be underhand. You know, there's usually a distance.
Oh, yeah, no, it's supposed to be 30 foot
yes.
dip, believe me. Yeah,
and they're not meant for human contact. Those generally explode in front, everybody pulls back. This wasn't a smoke grenade that can then keep spinning and doing its thing. This is meant to explode and shock and awe. And I remember standing there. I didn't even realize they even had the camera up. I just remember looking up as I see one of the officers pull an overhand, which normally you're not going to overhand something like that because you want it to bounce in front of the crowd. And then as he overhands, I noticed that pin pop off the side, and it goes straight to us. And I'm like, no. And then that was it. It hits. I feel it come up through my body because it hit down on the back of my ankle, burned my leg. And I remember falling to the ground, not realizing why, and still not putting together there was even the explosion. And then kind of come back to it. You're yelling. Everybody's yelling. There's the CHOP medics are coming over. And I think, you know, from front to back, I would suspect the officer who threw it, I don't know if he was panicked at the time, what it was, because there's no way with that many kids you're going to overhand something like that. That's not how it's supposed to be used. But that's what happened. And in the end, you know, I remember your ears are ringing, my ears are ringing. We're kind of like, did this even really happen? You know, and there it was. I'm thankful that nobody got really hurt. And
yeah, no, I mean, you know, it's important sometimes for people, for our audience to kind of see what was going on that day. What's next for you, Steve? You know, as far as I know you're still shooting around protests and things like that. It's not quite as active as things were. What else are you doing? And also, I heard that you fly helicopters.
Yeah, so. You know, I also work in the home building industry, so that's a lot of what I do that kind of gives me the ability to go out and use my time the way I want and be able to do this. But, you know, when I went into this, it was really to try and create a historical library of what was happening in a little bit more cinematic way, not knowing that this was going to sustain. I thought this would be, you know, roughly July, we'd wind down. There's a lot left to happen.
Hey, you know, the story, this is what we told people, and it's like Converge, man, it's still here. You know, you got to stick. My mama always says you got to keep your word, stick with your commitments. And, you know, we made this commitment, like, man, Converge is going to see this thing through. Well, you know, I mean, seeing it through isn't just the streets. It's like what's going to happen in City Hall, what's going to happen with this and that. So it's like a story that we're continuing to follow. Before we get out of here, though, I see, you know, there was always lots of grimy footage, as we should say. They were coming out of the protest. This one kind of jumped out to me. And also, it's a Friday, so they needed to keep it light. But this one jumped out to me right here. It's just something that you put together. It's called Dance Party. This is number 10. There's some footage actually from back in the CHOP days. A light moment in the CHOP. Man, you know, that same day, not this day, but July 25th, the same day with the flashbangs, after all of that, we got to Broadway. Remember, we all got to Broadway, and the chimichanga lady started playing Marvin Gaye.
Oh yeah.
and you remember everybody, like
Yeah.
protesters, police, everybody stopped for about 5 minutes when Marvin Gaye was playing. You know what I'm saying? It was a little mini peace treaty there. My mom always says Motown can heal the world. So, Steve, how do people, if people want to get up with you?
So I've just now started putting stuff out. You know, I work as Impactful Lens. I have it on Facebook. There's also on Instagram. I haven't done much on Instagram because most of my stuff runs longer than a minute, and Instagram's really small.
We'll hook you up. I got somebody who can help you with that.
Okay, good. Other than that, look up on Facebook, Impactful Lens. I'm just starting to get a lot of these videos up. A lot of them I was just kind of circulating in groups of people that I knew, so we could pull clips out of them and do other stuff. But I'd like to start getting this out more and more and show, you know, moments like that where people just really just want to have a moment together and have some unity, and then times where it's, you know, it's
you got some funky stuff too.
Yeah, for sure. Because it all happens, right?
Yeah, it all happens. It happens in front of an Impactful Lens.
That's right.
Steve Hickey, thanks for joining us, man. We're going to take a short break right now. When we come back, Triana joins us quickly. Well, or maybe not. When we come right back, we got headlines with the Emerald. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
We're the Yard Bros. I'm Taco.
I'm Tia.
And this is our love story.
So we've been together for 14 years and married for 12.
So we met at a choir rehearsal.
No.
Which way?
We met at church.
Oh, you talking about the very first?
The very first interaction.
When you were shady. Okay.
I was not shady.
And I was like, will
I
you?
remember that.
And then it cuts off. And then I was like, marry me. And then I feel like,
but it stopped being about each other. And so COVID helped us to return to, wow.
We matter. You and I matter.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to our love story.
We're the Yard Bros.
And vote Black Love.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, CashApp, or PayPal at Converge Media.
All right, welcome back to the Morning Update Show. Talked to Mike Davis earlier today from the South Seattle Emerald, so we have the headlines there. Also threw in a few extra talking points. He also brings up his opinion on the appointment of Andre Taylor in the street czar position. Here's me and Mike Davis, headlines with the Emerald. All right, good morning, and what's bound to be a very big news day today. Here with Mike Davis, South Seattle Emerald. How are you, brother?
I'm doing good. Just waiting for the last of this smoke to clear.
Man, I know that. well, good luck with that. I mean, Seattle always been smoky, but
we can't go outside.
Yeah, man. I'm looking out the window now. I can't even see across the street. Wow, let's jump into these headlines here, man. I think first one is. Barr told prosecutors to consider sedition charges for protest violence.
Yeah, so let me just start off by saying that it's highly, highly unlikely that this will actually move forward. I just want to put it out there just so that folks are aware of the next thing that the Trump administration is doing in this political posturing heading into the election. I mean, the idea of bringing sedition charges, which is close to treason charges for protesters in a country that was built. I mean, this is the land of the free. We're supposed to have the right to protest, yet the Trump administration is taking a formal stance against any protest that doesn't align with the Republican ideology. And this is just a ridiculous story through and through, if I'm being honest.
Man, so you feel like this is election season tactics or what?
I do feel that it's election season tactics. I just feel that it's especially relevant to us here in Seattle because outside of the fact that Barr wants to bring sedition charges to the rioters, as he calls them, he also mentioned Mayor Durkin by name in this speech to federal prosecutors and asked if it was possible to bring charges against her for allowing the CHOP to happen in Seattle.
Damn, charges against the CHOP. They be going hard out there, fam.
This is stemming from protests last summer, and in that New York Times article, they actually did a study that shows that 93% of the protests over last summer were actually peaceful. So this is definitely it's political posture, man. That's all.
Right. And now next one here. This is that's Don Lemon. let's find this story. But the next one here is the LA sheriff. There's something here about the LA sheriff challenging LeBron James, huh?
Yeah, so there was a viral video in Compton of a citizen walking up to a police car and shooting two cops. And the cops survived, but the LA sheriffs are looking for the suspect, and Sheriff Villanueva challenged LeBron James to match the award money in apprehending the suspect. And I mean, it all ties in. I wrote a story this week in the Emerald about Breonna Taylor and her family receiving the $12 million settlement. And I really wanted to highlight the fact that it is not the cops, the individual cops, it is not the police department that is going to pay this settlement. It is the taxpayers in the city of Louisville. In fact, in 2019, taxpayers paid $300 million in settlements related to police misconduct. So when I see this story of the LA sheriffs trying to challenge LeBron James to put this money up, it's like police don't want to be accountable for their own actions. And now they don't want to be accountable to do their own jobs. I mean, what do they want to be accountable for? And when they argue against the whole idea of defunding the police, I mean, these are the types of situations that make us so strong on the defund front in the first place.
Why do you think he singled out LeBron James?
I think he singled out LeBron James because they try to push a narrative that if you say you are for defunding police, then somehow you are also for violence against police. And those two things don't necessarily go hand in hand. Just because we want police to be accountable for their actions does not mean that we condone senseless violence against police officers. We just want police officers to be accountable. But in fighting against that false narrative, here the police are again trying to find a way to pass off accountability back on to the taxpayers that pay for their services in the first place.
Man, any comment from LeBron on this?
No comment from LeBron on this. He has not responded.
All right. Next one we got here is federal judge orders Postal Service to halt changes that would slow election mail, ruling in favor of Washington's Attorney General Ferguson. They said Bob's like 34-1, man.
He's out there winning them. And this was a big one. So the federal judge changed a couple key things that the Trump administration tried to change when Trump put his homeboy in charge of the Postal Service, which was forcing postal trucks to leave at certain times, even if they didn't have any mail in the trucks, and prohibiting trucks that are already en route from coming back to the station and picking up more mail. I mean, those changes were a deliberate act to slow mail delivery ahead of the election. Another thing that the federal judge also changed was that all election-based mail is now first priority. And this suit was brought by Washington and 13 other states that are planning to do mail-in votes during the November election. So this is a huge win for all of us. And the federal judge also pointed out that 72% of those of those machines that they removed from the post offices, and we talked about this before, 72% of those machines were removed in counties where Hillary won in 2016. So all of this lines up to Trump trying to stop votes against him in November.
All right. And one headline that I didn't get from you, but it's definitely been a headline in our community, in the Black community, and really, I guess, across Seattle, is Mayor Durkin's appointment of Andre Taylor of Not This Time as what's been entitled the Street Czar. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, this is a complicated issue, if I'm being honest, because first and foremost, you know, I'm never against a Black man for getting his money. I mean, if that money has to go somewhere, it might as well go to one of us. But at the same time, I do hear the streets talking, and there are some things with Gorgeous Dre that have emerged as problematic. What I would say is it does strike me the wrong way that his title is Street Czar. I don't feel like they would be calling a white guy a street czar.
Yeah, I had a problem with that title as well, to be honest with you. And it's the title is a bit misleading for the work that they're saying that he's going to be doing.
Right, because from what I understand, it's based in Capitol Hill, and I don't really feel like that demographic falls under streets. I literally think that they made that because he's Black. Now, I think another thing that is extremely important to mention is that, you know, he was at the forefront of a movement that brought some of the most significant changes in police accountability in like the last
940.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, that's major, and he has to get some level of credit for that.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, I think that what I said on the morning show a few days ago was that I think that the title, I mean, they probably could have just hired him as a de-escalation specialist.
I definitely think that will work.
Left it as that.
And I also, you know, Mayor Durkin has made these promises about the money that she's going to put aside for the community. And we have a lot of community organizations that are going to want to step up and be able to get their hands on these funds. Yet it seems like the only Black folks that Mayor Durkin is actually working with is BLM, Seattle King County, who has no affiliation with the national Black Lives Matter movement that was started by those 3 Black women, and Andre Taylor, who has rubbed people in our activist community the wrong way for a long time now. So I do worry about the specific Black folks that Mayor.
Well, the mayor also has a coalition with a lot of the Black pastors, church groups. But yeah, I mean, that's the 3 that stand out to me is the pastors, Andre Taylor, and it looks like, I mean, pastors and Andre Taylor, like 100%. BLM, Seattle King County, I mean, it kind of looks like, you know, I haven't seen them shake hands on the same stage like we have the pastors and Andre Taylor, but I mean, they seems like they're getting much closer.
They are. I mean, they just reached out to the Seattle Elections Commission, and their attack on city council seems really, really in line with a lot of the things that we were hearing from Mayor Durkin. So it's just tough right now because it feels like everyone is choosing sides between mayor and council. And I just hope that at the end of the day, it's not the Black community that loses in that political struggle.
Amen to that, brother. The only side that I'm choosing today, man, is the side of health, and want to remind everybody that, man, this smoke is very dangerous. And I always want to tell people, if you don't have to go outside, don't. And if you do, please protect yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, before I let you go, how can people get up with the South Seattle Emerald?
Oh, man, just Google us, man. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, South Seattle Emerald, also SouthSeattleEmerald.com.
All right, that was Mike Davis this morning, South Seattle Emerald. I tell you, I got to get up early, man.
Yeah. Make sure all these clips get done, huh?
Man.
Shout out to South Seattle Emerald, man, and Mike Davis, man, holding it down.
Yeah, for sure. So, okay, it looks like it's a big, for us, a big programming day today. 2 o'clock today, we got Chats with Trey. And who's your guest?
Yeah, we got Sisters Rock the Arts.
Okay, yeah. Sisters Rocks the Arts. A lot of you probably already got a notification for that. Make sure and put the reminder there. And then I'm thinking probably either 5 o'clock or 7 o'clock, will be airing the full interview, 1 hour and 11 minutes with OPA director Meyerberg.
Wow.
And they were trying to do a live show after that. I got to talk to you and see who we can get on our live show. We'll send them the link, man, and bring them on the screen. Let's talk about it.
I know that's right.
We're getting about it. All right. It's about that time, huh?
It is. Let's do it.
All right. Well, for the morning update show, I think that's it for this week.
That's right.
All right. Man, want to tell everybody, first of all, thank you. Thank you for your continued support. We continue to grow and thrive in this lane because of you. I also want to tell everybody, man, please let's be careful out here in this environment with the smoke and everything that's out there. And this smoke, again, in the air creates an opportunity for you to check in on a loved one or a friend, somebody you might not even talk to in a while. You can hit them up, be like, yeah, well, I'm just calling to see if you're okay with this smoke. You know, do some bridge building. Let's go from there. Until Monday at 11 a.m. Peace.
Every voice and sing, dealer than heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day.